Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this Independent Socialists in Wellingborough public Zoom meeting. I'm delighted to welcome Alex Mays, and as I have recently referred to, it's the first leader of a major political party. If I could describe you as major, but certainly a political party. Welcome to this ISW meeting, and perhaps we can welcome future leaders of other political parties as well. And also would like to welcome Joe Healy as well, who's also a leading member of Left Unity. So we've got two representatives, if you like, of two major parties on the left at this particular Zoom meeting. So welcome. Now, Alex, you'll introduce yourself individually, but if I could say that the Breakthrough Party was formed, as I understand, in 2021, and you describe yourself as a new home for those determined to disrupt the failed status quo and build an alternative, a society that uses its considerable wealth to provide dignity, security, and justice for all. And that's on your from your website. And it sounds like you're a new and an exciting initiative. So over to you, Alex. Please tell us more about the Breakthrough Party, what you want to achieve, and what have you.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Paul, and thanks everyone for having me tonight as well. Yeah, it's been a pretty crazy couple of years, really. Like my political journey is pretty similar to like a lot of young people, I guess, that I wasn't particularly, when I was in my teenage years, in my early 20s, I was not particularly politically active or particularly engaged in politics. And that all sort of changed when I changed career. So I moved up to, I was originally born and raised on the South Coast. And I moved up to Manchester when I was 20, I think 23 or 24. And I retrained as a journalist. And it sort of timed quite well with the Labour leadership election in 2015. So my training, I think I was finishing my training at that time. And I became very interested because I think, like many people, I thought all politicians are the same. It's just everyone, all in it for themselves, not in it for the people they're supposed to represent. But then I saw this, as many of you will probably attest to, and like other, hundreds of thousands of people, like you meet this person, you see this person who seems to be doing things differently in Jeremy Corbyn. So at that point, I was interested, started getting more into current affairs, became a journalist and worked for a couple of, I worked for the Manchester Evening News, and then I worked for like a sort of social media publisher at the time, and started writing more and more, like doing like features, and like I ended up becoming a documentary filmmaker as well for a couple of years. And that's when I started really gaining an understanding of like the issues that people go through and everything else. And it was during this time that, I didn't join the Labour Party this time. I was still very much just like, I was quite engrossed in my work as a journalist and as a documentary filmmaker. And then 2017 happened, and it was like, oh my God, like it's unreal, like, how close we were, I guess, as a movement of actually getting a socialist in power. So then after that, I actually joined the Labour Party at that point. I got involved in my local branch. So I was in Salford and Eccles, which is quite a good branch, quite a socialist branch. And you had Rebecca Long-Bailey as well as the MP. And sort of did bits and pieces, but I was still working quite a lot. So I wasn't fully active. And then 2019 general election happened. And like probably everyone in here just felt total despair, disillusionment, apathy, anger, all the negative emotions you could possibly feel. And at this point, I actually wanted to channel that into something that was proactive and positive. So I actually threw myself in to start doing training with the Labour Party to be an organizer. That's what I wanted to be. I was like, okay, well, we have to start again. I voted for Rebecca Long-Bailey and Richard Bergen, I think it was, for leader and deputy in the leadership election. Obviously, Keir Starmer got in, but I still carried on my training. I was like, give him a chance. Let's see what he does. 10 pledges, everything else. And I think for me, over the course of 3 or 4 months, it was like a death by 1,000 cuts. I don't actually know what was the thing that tipped me over the edge, but there was just so many different things that he did in that 4-month period, and has continued since. Like, God, like I'm so glad I'm no longer in the Labour Party, because I think every day would just properly upset me, depressed me, whatever else, I couldn't deal with it. So I left in, I think, so it would have been like June or July 2020. And at that time as well, we had the pandemic. So I was fortunate enough to be furloughed from my job. So I was basically just sat at home, not able to really do anything, getting very angry and frustrated with politics in general, seeing the opposition or lack of opposition from Starmer and Labour Party, but also a government that was just mishandling this pandemic, and thousands of people were dying unnecessarily while they were giving billions to their mates. And I was just getting really angry. I was trying to like find ways to channel that into something positive. I was looking around, and there wasn't really a political party out there that I felt represented me and what I was wanting from society. So me and my friends just started a WhatsApp group, like just almost like a venting group at first, just like, we want to talk about things, we want to talk about some like political ideas, but also just have an opportunity to have a space to just let it all out, because it was just like I was just cooped up in I lived in a flat. I didn't really go out for a walk once a day, and getting quite agitated and not very happy about things. So we started that group and we started throwing some ideas about, and then one day I just sort of went, we should start a political party. Just like that, literally just like, no, it sounds so naive now and so ridiculous now, where it's just like, I just thought, oh, like we could just start a political party. I'm sure it'd be really easy. I can absolutely assure you it's not easy at all. It has been very, very difficult to get to the point where we're at now. But I just went, yeah, let's just do it. Let's try and start a political party. So we started going through the process, like, making logo, getting the website done, going through all the sort of bureaucracy of the Electoral Commission to get the party registered, which was in itself quite a faff. But then finally, January 2021, we became a registered political party. So that's when we started all our social media accounts. So I saw mentioned before, like social media is like part of my background. So very quickly we were able to build like quite a lot of awareness online, using level of humor as well as like talking seriously about politics, which seemed to engage an audience that maybe doesn't usually get involved in politics, which was really, really good at the start. Since then, like the Twitter page, I think it's now over 40,000 followers, so that's grown in about 2 years to 40,000 from nothing. And we use the social media as like a really good calling point to like bring people in. We sort of like had 10 core policies at the time that were voted through by members, which was like, the sort of like £15 minimum wage, renationalisation of the NHS, energy, water, mail, broadband, public ownership, Green New Deal, proportional representation, all the good stuff, basically. That was our sort of like 10 core policies at the time. And then we opened up the party to membership in May 2021. And since then, we've grown to nearly 1,000 members now, sort of like all across England, Scotland and Wales. The sort of biggest county out of all of them is actually the county I live in Greater Manchester. So we've got nearly 1,000 members and about 75 of them in Greater Manchester, which is quite interesting. But then we've got like people all scattered all across the UK. Like, for example, in Great Yarmouth, of all places, a pretty random place, got 16 members in Great Yarmouth. So like, it's very interesting when you look at the membership data. It's just like how spread out it is across the country. So that's been really positive, like seeing the growth, because I think it's not easy. It's not easy, especially we found during the, since the cost of living crisis has really bitten in as well. People sort of dropping subscription-based stuff because they wanted to try and find ways to cut back. So we actually had to try and introduce like a pay it forward model. So if someone does come into like financial insecurity, people will pay out a little bit more a month if they're able to. And then that money can then be used to fund people's memberships for a 3-month period. And then we review it. And if they're still in that position, continue funding their membership through those extra funds. So like it has been like the last few months to try and keep growing has been tough at times, especially now with everything that's been going on like with the Tories as well. There is definitely a big get the Tories out crowd out there. And it's been a lot of people have been, we're hearing of people joining Labour. I don't know what kind of people have been joining the Labour Party, but it definitely is the mentality at the moment, which is very get the Tories out. So it's not been as easy to grow in the last few weeks and months, but we're still growing every week, which is amazing. And we held, we had all these members come in. Now we're sort of at the stage where we're trying to get a real like national structure in place. That's been like a lot of the work I've been doing with our national secretary Alan, getting all like a lot of like roles filled there, and we're wanting to sort of like build down into regional branches, which we've now elected national committee representatives, like a new lot of representatives for the national committee. And we're going to start drilling into the regional branches and then down into like more local branches, like at county level, city level, town level. That's what we're hoping to do next. We're actually doing, so we did party conference earlier this month, which was really good. We had some brilliant speakers. We had Ian Hodson from the Bakers Union. We had Keep Our NHS Public, Dr. Bob Gill. We had Chantel Lunt, who was the co-founder of Kill the Bill. We had Maya Thomas, who's a brilliant community activist down in Exeter and started up BLM in Exeter as well. Had Thelma Walker, former Labour MP. We had a few other speakers as well. It was just a really great, you had like Don't Pay and Just Stop Oil and some really good speakers. So that was really amazing to sort of see, because during this period, we've been perpetually online, at first forced through COVID, but as we've grown, we've been able to, now we have enough people, we can do a lot more stuff in person. So we had a really great, that was about 3 weeks ago now. And now we're planning for a weekend of action at the end of November, which is basically we're going to be running street stalls and leafleting sessions we're aiming for about 20 to 25 places across the UK. So that's something we're promoting with members, but also with people that aren't members of the party as well, to come along and help us spread the word about Breakthrough, because, we don't want to exclude non-members from that process. Like if people want to promote the party and be involved in that, develop their skills as well, then we'd be all for that. And what we're hoping with these street stalls and deep canvassing as well, eventually, is that we'll develop a real like bottom-up model in terms of like organising, campaigning, policy development, and everything else that comes with it, rather than a top-down approach where we're just saying, oh, these are the issues, when like we're not actually speaking to people. It has to come through listening and identifying those issues through speaking to people on the ground and actually understanding what the issues are. Like we can make as many predictions as we like, but ultimately it's the only people that can tell us what actually the issues are is people, normal people. So that's sort of like the next step of our journey. We're building like some really good links with trade unions, People's Assembly, Don't Pay, Acorn, Just Stop Oil. So that's been like my job really. I went actually full time with the party back in April to be a full-time member of staff. We had one of our members got an inheritance basically, and they then committed like a large donation to the party, which has helped fund campaigning, but then also helped fund my salary as well, which I've been very open about with members and stuff like that as well. So this is my full-time job until April on like a 12-month contract, and then we'll sort of be reviewing where we're at nearer the time. But it's been, we're sort of at that stage now where we're just trying to grow, trying to build in communities, and get prepared for, not only, we are an electoral party, and like we understand that we need to compete in elections, and we absolutely want to do that, but we also understand that it goes beyond that. Like it's about what we do in the community, what we do in workplaces, what we do on the streets, and everything else that comes with it. That's why we're really keen to build all these relationships as well, and have this proper ecosystem that exists on the left, which is really cooperative and really like quite powerful. So like that's pretty much where we're at the moment. We're sort of currently training some local election candidates as well. We've actually got a training program for our candidates, which we've put into place, which will be really good. And we're just at that stage now where it feels like, and I say this all the time, it's like we're sort of ending phase one of our development, which was very online and very like about growing, like raising awareness online. And now it's very much moving into in-person stuff and actually really getting on the ground and actually doing the work that it's the work I've been really excited for us to do. It's just getting to that point where we have enough members to do that. So, and lots of training that's going to be happening with activists, like around how to speak to people on the ground. Like it's very easy to sort of throw people in and they just talk about Breakthrough, but that's not what it's going to be about. It's going to be about actually listening to people and getting there, as I said before, like using those learnings to actually do the right thing, which is ultimately like trying to find solutions. Like we're going to work with local groups as well, like user-led services and advocacy groups, law centres and stuff like that to provide tangible, like like clear and tangible advice for people and actual solution, like a more immediate solutions, as well as like what we're trying to do as a party, which is more medium to long term solutions. So like that's kind of where we're at. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for now. I probably could go on, but I think that sort of sums up where we're at. It's just really exciting. Like it feels like we're very much at the end of phase 1, which is online, moving into phase 2, which is very much more in person campaigning and organizing, which is what I'm really excited about. So yeah, that's sort of breakthrough in a nutshell.
Thank you very much, Alex. That's a really good opener, and I was really interested to hear the history. So you're a political formation that's arisen out of COVID. Then I mean, there's and the use of you're probably one of the first party that was founded through the use of new technology and the internet and the new forums that are presented. So some really interesting stuff there. Who would like to? Let's start off with questions to Alex, points of clarification. Then perhaps move on to wider discussion. Is there any questions that people have to Alex at this point?
I was going to say very quickly as well, I did actually forget to mention one thing. We've also got 7 councillors currently who are sitting within the party. So they're people that have defected from the Labour Party. And we're expecting a few more to defect over the coming weeks and months as well. So that's just another thing I wanted to throw in there. I totally forgot to mention that, which is quite a big thing to.
I noted you've even got a mayor as well, or are they no longer a mayor?
He did. They were a mayor in Bangor, but they've moved away from the area, so they ended up resigning and not and I think they were going to serve another year until next May, but they've moved, I think, down in Norfolk, so they didn't feel like they could continue serving a term, which I think is totally fair enough. But we had a mayor as well.
Through defections from Labour, presumably.
They were, from what I remember, they might have been Plaid Cymru, and then were an independent, and then joined us. I think they're absolutely still a member, but I think they're hoping to get more active once they move back up to Bangor.
Okay, thank you. So who wants to be the first person to ask a question or make a contribution, whatever? Joseph, you're the first in.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Interesting to hear that. I might say something later about Left Unity's involvement, but I just wanted to ask you, I know you had your conference recently and you've mentioned some of the speakers, and some of those speakers we have links with as well. But I was going to ask you, what were the main sort of decisions that came out from the conference? Were there any sort of policy decisions or anything like that?
Thank you. Yeah, so it was weird because what would usually happen is I think at next year's conference we will be doing more like bringing policy motions and putting them through. But because we had just finished putting together our full manifesto, that's another thing I forgot to mention. I can't believe that. We also put together our full manifesto, well, a manifesto we called it, because it's 150 policies, but was all quite top line. It wasn't like really in depth like some like more mainstream parties have done. Because we just released our manifesto, we didn't have any sort of policy motions that came out of it. What we kind of used the conference as was almost like a launch, like an in-person launch almost, you could argue, an opportunity for members to meet and socialize and get to know each other. Like we had, like, for example, in the East Midlands, we had like quite a lot of members from the East Midlands who came up together and like socialized and got to know each other. And now that's a really tight knit regional branch as a result of that. But I think it was also just like taking learnings from like the general landscape, political landscape. So like we talked about cost of living, the NHS, and climate justice as well. So like there was a lot of learning to be done. And I think what we were trying to do as well was arm members with the tools they needed to become activists. So we did a couple of workshops as well, which were really beneficial, and just kind of giving people an indication of where we're going next, and kind of getting people energized about what we're doing next. And we've seen like really positive results off the back of it. It's been really like, I unfortunately, I got COVID about 3 or 4 days after conference. So I wasn't able to sort of like really capitalize fully on that energy, but we have got a lot of energy in the party after it. And it's just a really exciting time. So like we've been using the conference as a sort of a catalyst really to get people more active and engaged and involved. And that's kind of what it succeeded in doing. But I was going to say as well, Left Unity, like I know you'll probably mention it later, but like we're really keen to build our relationship with Left Unity as well. Like we've got a hell of a lot of respect for the people involved in Left Unity. I think I actually met quite a few in person when I went down to London last. I think I met Doug, Andrew, and a couple of others, I believe, as well. And we are definitely looking at how we can work together more closely. I know there's been contact in Liverpool, in Leeds, and I think in London as well. So yeah, that's really positive as well. I think that's going to be really important as part of POW. I think that'd be really good.
Dave, if you want to unmute.
Yep. Hi, Alex. You recall you and I had a chat on the phone.
Yes.
Nice. I should add, I'm already a breakthrough member. And just leading on from the point that you've just made, what's concerning me is the number of, let's say, left-wing political groups there are at the moment. I tried to make a list of them before the meeting, and I got to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, clearly, that tends to lead naturally to a fragmentation of the support as far as the left side of politics is concerned. I mean, some of these groups are more extreme than others. Some of them seem to have policies quite akin to the Breakthrough Party. I mean, it's interesting with here as well that we've got someone from another one of the groups that I was able to identify. There are a couple of moves at the moment which I picked up, or people, if you like, trying to pick up that ball and run with it. Unfortunately, one of them was George Galloway, who seemed to want to take a lead, if you like, trying to unify the left wing of politics. But unfortunately, George is toxic to some members of that part. But there's also another big move from a group called Socialist Unity Movement, who are very active on Facebook in trying to draw people together. I'm just wondering what's your views on that whole subject of how this sort of umbrella comes together.
No, thanks, Dave. I think it's a very difficult question. I got told this when I first started the party, that the left is fragmented and it's very difficult to bring everyone together on a common cause. You mentioned Workers' Party, for example. Like, there's a lot of policies, like they style themselves as, like, some of their policy, it can be quite socially conservative, especially around like immigration and around trans rights and more social issues. So like that for us is like quite at odds with our policy, very, very different. But there's other socialist parties and groups that are much more in line with what we're trying to do. And I think what the left needs to do and what other political parties need to do, and I think there are these conversations happening, which is good, is that, you know, I'm sort of talking just purely electorally here, just because I think that is the worry, is like, okay, well, if you get like a Tusk candidate and a Breakthrough candidate in the same area, neither stand down, and then you're splitting what left vote there is. Because I know a lot of people say about splitting the left vote when like talk about Labour, which is just nonsense these days. But if you have Tusk and Breakthrough standing in the same area, that's obviously an issue, because socialists and people that vote for the socialist parties will be torn on who they vote for. So what I encourage and what I'm trying to bring about is proper constructive conversation between these groups and identify where we do align and where we don't, and then at a local or even a regional level, decide, you know, when the point does come, if the general election does come, or even local elections, is say, well, we're standing here, we've got a really good candidate, and then we sort of have these discussions at a local level. Like, this shouldn't be coming from a national level or from, like, you know, leadership level either. Like, that's where we work we're very democratic and member led. I'm not imposing like, oh, we need to stand here and that's it kind of thing. Where like, yeah, members in their local area or in their region have chats with other parties in their region or local area, discuss who's got the best candidate, vote it through, And then you hopefully have a breakthrough candidate, say like a breakthrough candidate in Manchester Central, but you have a Tusk candidate in Bury South, or you have a Left Unity candidate elsewhere in Greater Manchester. So we're put together as many socialist MP candidates as much as possible, where we're not standing against each other. Like that has to be the aim for the next general election, because I think the next general election will be fought on the get the Tories out mantra. I do really truly believe that, and I think it will be a struggle for our party and other socialist parties to make a real dent in that. But we absolutely should try and still rise to that challenge. I think the next election will be the big one after that. Hate to say it, I know that's like 5, 7, it could be like up to 7 years' time, when I inevitably think Labour will probably get in, but there'll be a lot of pressure on Starmer to deliver radical change, because it's going to be desperately needed with all the different crises we have. And I think that's where socialist parties will really come into their own in terms of providing that like true opposition to that. So yeah, for me, it's just constructive dialogue, working with parties and what does bring us together, and working at a local and regional level to ensure that we're not, splitting the left vote, and also constructively working on campaigns together as well. Like I know that's already, I think there's been some elements of that with Left Unity already with Breakthrough. So yeah, I think that has to be the way forward for sure. And I think they will. Some of these parties will probably die out, and some will continue going. And I think there will be mergers. I've heard about, I think Resist have merged into Socialist Labour Party, for example. So I imagine like more of that will be happening as we try and identify who's got the kind of the best chance of making that breakthrough. So yeah, I think there'll be a lot of chop and change over the next couple of years, but it has to be about working together and having that dialogue.
Thank you.
Derek Curlis, if you unmute.
Okay, thanks, Paul. And apologies if my voice goes before I finish. But like many people at the moment, I've got a kind of bug, and I don't know if what I say should be said later. But I'm going to say it now because I may not be here later.
You shouldn't even be at this meeting, Derek.
Yeah, I should not be at this meeting. That's why I'm here.
Otherwise, you spread the germs. But
yeah. Alex, I've got nothing but admiration for what you're doing. Tremendous amount of energy in a world at the moment which is quite a depressing place. And you talk about the left being divided. I hope you don't believe that the right is unified, because I think they're more divided than the left. And having followed politics for the last 50 odd years, I've probably gone round and round in circles. So I spend a lot of my time now thinking and getting nowhere. But the thought which keeps coming back to me is that we have got a very divided country and a very divided world. So what we need is something which will unite people. And don't think for one moment I'm talking about something like Christianity. So what is there which everyone could believe in and could act on, which would be worth doing? And there's only one thing which springs to mind, and that's the climate crisis. And that cuts across left politics, right politics, Christianity, atheism, language, gender, everything. Now, I know that the left groups are trying to get together, the trade unions are trying to join with XR, and it seems to be XR is not too keen on joining with trade unions. But I feel, and please don't take this as a criticism, etc., that your energy and the energy of other groups like yourselves would, for the next few years, put all your energy in uniting with anyone who will believe what the truth is, which is that climate change is going to happen and going to happen a damn sight quicker than people think, and get climate crisis on track. And then you can splinter off and tweak this and tweak that. But at the moment, you're trying to do something when there is no definite future for the world as it is. Normal will never return. but normal for a lot of places in this world is temperatures of 40, no food, no water, mass migration starting already in the Southern Hemisphere. And the only reason we're not concerned about it here is one, it's not reported well enough, and two, it's too far away. So I don't think you're a voice in the wilderness, but you may be a voice in the wilderness a damn sight sooner than you think you are. Thank you.
Thanks, Derek. I totally agree with you. I think the climate crisis is the biggest existential threat to humanity, and it'd be silly for us not to talk about that and to really campaign on that. Like I work quite closely with Just Stop Oil, which is really, I've got a really good contact up here, and it's interesting you mentioned the link between XR and trade unions, because he's actually the guy I'm speaking to. I've got a good contact with, is the sort of driving force for trying to bring climate justice and activism together with the trade union movement. So what we're going to be trying to do with our members actively is like encouraging them to join trade unions, get active in trade unions, but be pushing the climate change agenda, a green agenda, as part of that, and trying to bring those sort of two movements together, because I think there is still a massive divide, like a massive gap, I think, between trade union movement and the climate movement. There's obviously like a lot of parties on the left as well who I think are very good when it comes to the environment, and I think that is a big uniting factor. Like we've just signed so we're going to be having breakthrough blocks at the COP27 coalition demos that are happening, and we've just I think Left Unity are involved in the Eco Socialist Alliance, where we put our name to this like these set of demands. But we're also working with Just Stop Oil to do non-violent direct action training. So we're going to, speak to our members and see if they want to take that up, and encourage members to be disruptive if they're willing to. Obviously, I think some of it, like for example, like I know that my fiance probably wouldn't let me get arrested or want me to get arrested, but there's people that will be able to do that, and we want to make sure that they have all the right training and everything involved in that. So yeah, for me, like, even now with our policy development as well, the environment is like the one which everyone, like the most amount of people are in and interested in trying to deal with. But yeah, I think it's worse than it's probably publicized as well. Like I think, like talking about like the 1.5 degree hit, like that could probably happen in, like I think there's like a 25% chance it could happen in the next 2 years, like something like that. So it is absolutely massive, and I think there has to be, I'm hoping that Just Stop Oil and other climate activist groups will be able to bring the left together in that way. I've seen with the same way that has happened with Enough is Enough with cost of living, which I'm sure we might end up talking about later. I'm not sure, because I'm sure some of you here might be involved in Enough is Enough. But yeah, I think that is a unifying factor. I do agree. I think environment is something we can probably unite behind, and I'm hoping that over these next few months and years we will be able to build a united left movement, because I think you look back through history, the left has always been quite divided and fragmented, and I agree that the right is, I think, even more so now off the back of what's happened with Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss, and you're seeing a lot more people, for example, leaving the Tories and joining Reform, and I think there'll be like Reclaim, and there'll be the more like far right groups like like For Britain, or like there's some other like sort of proper like far right groups that are existing as well. So yeah, it's a very divided time, and we need to find the common thread, and I think you're right to say that the environment is one of them. I also think another one is the economy as well, like pounds in people's pockets. Like, everyone is feeling the pinch and the effect of the cost of living crisis, the vast majority of people, as energy prices rise, food costs rise, mortgages, rents, everything. So I think it's good that Enough is Enough for doing something around that, but I think there needs to probably be the same level of engagement and enthusiasm for the climate justice movement as well, and Just Stop Oil was just a small part of that, I think.
Thank you. Derek, you seemed happy with that. Anybody else want to come in at this stage? Holly, hands up. Do you unmute, Holly?
Hi, yeah, I joined Breakthrough about 3 or 4 months ago, and I've got to say, I've been in other political parties that were left-wing that claimed they had democratic socialism before and democratic centralism, but I've never really truly experienced it until I was in Breakthrough. the fact that everything is about listening and understanding and hearing from the members, and that everything's put to a vote. Who do you want to be your representative on the National Committee? Who do you want that? Vote them in. And then if there's more than one, we'll have a vote again. What policies do you want to put in? Where do you want to try and target constituencies? Everything's put to the membership. And it was such a breath of fresh air. The fact that they want me as a member to be a participant and to have a voice in this, rather than this, oh, this is what has been decided, now go and do it, which I've been a party to in other political circles before. And I couldn't, I still can't quite say how truly different and absolutely inspiring it is that they have the trust in us as members of the party, and that it is about listening, not just being spoken at and just essentially expecting us to go and salute and say, yes, we shall do the thing that you, oh great ones who know more than us, have told us to do. Like, it isn't about that. It's so collaborative. And like here in the East Midlands, we have kind of really got together and got a really decent set of people that are working so hard and are really passionate and have got so many different skills in so many different areas. And over and over and over, we're told, like, if you want to take some responsibility in the East Midlands branch, you're not doing it alone. And they really mean it. And I would say that if anybody does feel a bit kind of politically homeless, like I did feel before I joined Breakthrough, like it's a great place to be. And as someone who has experienced other things from like Labour and then other smaller socialist parties, it's different. And the sheer drive, intelligence, empathy, and understanding of the membership has really struck me as something very, very special. So I know I'm very biased here in that regard, but I just wanted to share my own kind of like experience that it's really, they say hope as a new home, and it's not just words. It really isn't. Solidarity is a verb after all, and they're doing it.
Thank you, Holly. That personal perspective is really good to hear. And if I could just chip in a little bit, your experience of the political left is not uncommon. There are a number of socialist groupings and parties who are very top down. They're centrist rather than democratic, and this creates problems for unity on the left as well, to be honest, because some of the political parties on the left, their politics are not very open and not very transparent, and it does put people off. I mean, there's still the tendency to see selling newspapers as being the end. And also, the notion of building the party, building the revolutionary party, is put and elevated above other forms of struggle and other people in struggle. So your life becomes dominated by building the party and selling the paper, and that can be very, very almost religious in its in the way it operates. And so your experiences are shared, I think, by other people and put people off getting involved in left politics as well. But thank you for that.
No, I was going to say thanks, Holly. Like, honestly, that was like really lovely to hear. It's really nice to hear when like members are like having a genuinely like good experience within the party. So like for me, that's just like, I love to hear that. So no, thank you, Holly. And Yeah, I agree. Like, just to sort of add on to what you said, Paul, as well, is I think there absolutely is that element on the left where there are parties that are very top down. Members don't really have a say on policy or direction, strategic direction of the party. And I think that the environment we've tried to create is very much member led, bottom up, and hopefully that, and like we're hoping that that can be reflected even, you know, when we're on the ground doing campaigning and organizing as well. Like, you know, that will really help define what we're going to do in terms of our campaigning, in terms of our policy development. And yeah, it's just, yeah, we've managed to cultivate a really positive, like empowering, it like quite inspiring culture, which is really, really lovely. And I obviously, again, I'm going to be very biased as well, but I feel like we've managed to create that. And that's, and again, like hearing Holly and hearing other members say that is really quite, for me, like quite special. So yeah, it's really nice to hear.
I don't see anybody else with the hand up currently. Is this the moment perhaps for us to have a couple of minutes break? What do people think if we have you know, what time is it now? It's 10 to 8 now. So if we have a break till 5 to 8, 5 minutes, grab a coffee, grab a drink, go to the loo or whatever, and we come back at 5 to 8, and we'll continue the discussion for a bit longer, the Q&A contributions, and then see how it goes. So, okay, I'll pause the recording at this moment.